today we're going to be cooking a recipe from the Weight Watchers cookbook, What to Cook Now. We're going to be cooking the chicken, black bean, and corn chili. It's a really super easy recipe. Doesn't take very much time at all. We're going to start with these chicken breasts and then a can of black beans. I had a red pepper that I needed to use, so I'm substituting that for the green pepper. Some reduced sodium chicken broth, some canola oil, some tomato sauce, diced tomatoes with green chilies, some chili powder and cumin, and those onions and 2 garlic cloves. And I happened to forget the frozen corn. And this is way more chicken than what the recipe calls for, but I'm just going to cook it all so I'll have it to use throughout the week. So I'm going to bake the chicken in the oven. The recipe, I believe, says to cut it into 1-inch chunks and to brown it in a skillet. But since I'm cooking so much, I'm going to bake it in the oven. And as you saw, I cut up the onion and the red pepper, put the oil in the pan, and now I'm going to put couple cloves through the garlic press. This is really hard to do one-handed while holding onto a camera, so I had to put the camera down and come back to it. But this is a Pampered Chef garlic press, and almost every time the peel from the garlic comes out on the little plunger, and it makes it really easy to do. It's one of my favorite kitchen gadgets. So here's everything browning up in the pan, and I'm going to add the spices and give it a stir. And I forgot to include in my original ingredients, but it does call for some frozen corn. And I had a bag from when I made this a previous time. So I'm just going to add that corn in and give it a stir. And then I've rinsed and drained the black beans. You always want to rinse your black beans. I'm going to put those in. And then the can of tomato sauce. And then this Kroger brand diced tomatoes with green chilies is the equivalent to Rotel. So you could use Rotel also. And that is a smaller can than what the recipe calls for, but I don't feel like it makes a difference in the dish. So now I'm going to add the chicken broth, and this is where I changed the recipe up a bit. I like it to be more of a soup than a chili, so I'm adding the whole box of chicken broth. It cooks down quite a bit and makes a nice thicker soup. You could totally just follow the recipe and make it a chili, and it would be just as good. And there's my chicken breast. They are done now, and I'm going to put them in a stainless steel bowl and take a couple of forks and shred it. The recipe calls for it to be chunks, and I made it that way the first time, but I like to get a bite of chicken with every bite of my soup, so I am going to shred the chicken instead. And then these are containers I got off from Amazon. They're great for storing soup, either in the fridge or in the freezer. So here is where I am going to shred the chicken with 2 forks, and there it is, partially shredded. I still have a way to go. It's easier to do with a mixer. You just put it through, let the beaters do the work, but they don't have a mixer here at my son's house, so I just did it with the 2 forks. And this is the leftover chicken that I had. And there is the chicken that I shredded and put in the soup. And you can see it's cooked down quite a bit. It's a thicker soup. Lots of chicken, lots of vegetables. It has a really, really good flavor. So there is what I wound up with, 2 soup containers and a small bowl full. It's very delicious soup. It's comforting and filling. So I'm excited to say that there is a huge points difference between the old recipe and the new. The old recipe was 6 points a serving. There are 6 servings in this recipe. And in the new program, it's only 1 point per serving. So you could eat the whole pot and get the 6 points that it used to be for just 1 serving. So I think this is a great recipe to keep on hand. I'm going to freeze half and then keep half to eat during the week. I think it's a great option to have for days when you're struggling and you want something hot and comforting and satisfying. It has lots of flavor and I love it so much more with the shredded chicken. That's going to be how I'm going to make it from now on. So thanks everyone for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.